The Chicago Bulls were the most active team in the NBA during the 2021 offseason. They signed Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, and DeMar DeRozan all to long-term deals and made a mid-season trade before that offseason to acquire Nikola Vucevic, the all-star big man from the Orlando Magic, giving up Wendell Carter Jr., the man who was formerly a top 10 pick for them, as well as a first-round pick that ended up being top 10 in that 2021 NBA draft. And it was very clear their intentions were to build a playoff contender in Chicago. And the early returns were promising. They started the next season off very well, and throughout the year began to slow down, especially after some injuries started piling up, and overall finished the season as the 6th seed in the East, but the Milwaukee Bucks easily took them down in the first round. Now, DeMar DeRozan had the best season of his career at 32 years old for Chicago, and the thought for next year was to keep the same core with hopefully more guys being healthy and to add some vets on the margins and help out with the bench unit, such as Andre Drummond and Goran Dragic, both former Nets who they added in free agency. One thing that was huge for the Bulls going into this year and their expectations was Patrick Williams in his third year out of Florida State. In his first year, he was fairly efficient and showed some real flashes on the defensive end, but there were times where he clearly lacked confidence on the offensive end. And in his second season, the former 4th overall pick barely played for Chicago. And entering year 3, there were big expectations for him to make a jump and finally show that potential and why the Bulls picked him 4th overall. The Bulls were also banking on the returns of Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball. As for Ball, he still has not made his return, as we are more than 30 games into the season, and it is really unknown if he will return at all this season. And that's a big question for Chicago and something they're really banking on to turn around their season. But here's the thing about Chicago. They're not a Lonzo Ball away from being a contender or even a decent playoff team at this point. They're under 500, and at the time I'm recording this last night, they had given up 150 points to a Minnesota Timberwolves team without Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert. So what's wrong with this team, and what does the future hold for this Bulls franchise? Today we're going to be discussing that. And I think when you talk about the Bulls, you have to start with the two main co-stars, DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. As for LaVine, his numbers are down this year, especially scoring. Last season, playing alongside DeMar DeRozan, he complemented him really well. LaVine showed an ability to play off ball of DeRozan, who is best with the ball in his hands and can find his teammates well, playing in the post as a playmaker and as a self-creator. LaVine this season is averaging 3 less points than he did last year, as well as averaging less assists. And as for his scoring, he is averaging 21 a game on below league average true shooting. Not by much, but it still is below average. And Bulls fans have voiced their frustration with his effort on defense and his shot selection this season. Last season, playing alongside DeRozan, he put up 24 a game, averaged more assists, and shot 60.8% true shooting, which is above league average, and really was a lot more efficient as a player overall, very clearly. And the season before that, he was very efficient without DeRozan. And the dynamic between Chicago's two co-stars is something that's very interesting, as Shams did recently report that the two co-stars for the Bulls, DeRozan and LaVine obviously, have struggled to play together and gel in their second season playing alongside each other, which is especially interesting because in year 1 at times they looked so good playing off each other as scorers, and as we know, DeRozan, a very good creator for others at times. While he is ball dominant, he does really have an ability to find his teammates as well. And as for Zach LaVine, I just think overall this season, his effort on defense has been especially poor. He's lacked that same burst off the dribble. His shot making just hasn't been on the same level as past years, and his efficiency has clearly been down. Also, he struggled to play alongside DeMar DeRozan very clearly in their second year together as teammates. And when discussing the reasons this team has struggled, DeMar DeRozan I don't think is a big one, but considering how much he put the team on his back last season, it was only realistic to expect somewhat of a regression from him, as he's now 33 years of age. And even this year, at age 33, he's averaging 26, 5, and 5 on 60% true shooting, which is great. But it just doesn't seem like DeRozan can carry as heavy as a load as he did last year, and his co-star really isn't helping him out as much as he was last season. And his supporting cast has not been great either, which is the next thing we're going to dive into. This team's role players just really aren't that good, and their best one has clear knee problems, and those aren't going away anytime soon. And while LaVine has been disappointing, as we said, and DeMar DeRozan continues to get older, we also have to look at Nikola Vucevic, the man they traded for, and the rest of this roster. The two lottery picks, Patrick Williams and Coby White, definitely have not met expectations in their NBA careers. Now, Williams has a bit more time, but as for Coby White, he's in year 4. I think it's pretty clear that was not a hit in the 2019 NBA draft. But first, we're going to talk about Vucevic, the man they traded for from the Orlando Magic 2 years ago, trading Wendell Carter, 2 first-round picks, one of which became Franz Wagner, who would probably be the Bulls' most valuable young asset right now, and Otto Porter Jr. Now, Porter Jr. was bought out by the Magic, but Franz Wagner, that pick becoming him, and really trading a top 10 pick, and someone in Wendell Carter Jr. who has proven he can be a very good player when healthy. You know, I got it at the time. Carter Jr. just didn't seem like his career was working out in Chicago, but giving up that many assets for a 30-plus-year-old center isn't great on defense. Now, his 2020 season with the Magic, he was spectacular before they dealt him, and he was good with the Bulls the rest of the season after being dealt at the deadline. His next season with the Bulls, he put up pretty decent numbers, and this year his numbers are down a bit, averaging just 16 a game, but Vucevic is still a good offensive player, putting up 16 and 10 this season, shooting 37% from 3. But just looking back on this trade, it was very short-sighted. They gave up their pick that season, Wendell Carter Jr., as well as the pick this year, which is top 4 protected, but still, that might be pretty decent if the Bulls continue at the pace they are playing at right now. And Vucevic, as I said, he is a good player, but he lacks mobility on defense. Teams will target him in playoff games, in the pick and roll. And I just don't think he was worth that price at all, especially now being 32 years of age. And he seems someone who definitely is a candidate to be traded at the deadline if Chicago can get anything, positive for him. And when looking at the rest of this roster, it's a mix of young guys who really haven't been that effective this year, and vets such as Javonte Green, Andre Drummond, and Goran Dragic. Now, Dragic hasn't been that good this year, and really neither has Drummond, but I do like Javonte Green. He is a good defender and makes some nice passes as well. Ayo Dosunmu is one of the young guys who showed some promise as a second-round pick out of Illinois last season, but this year has been reduced to a smaller role, especially in the recent games, but his numbers still aren't bad, averaging 9 and 3, and I do think he's a solid backup guard and will be one for a long time. I really liked him at Illinois. Was one of the best college players in the nation. And Coby White and Patrick Williams are the other 2 young guys in this rotation. Now, as for Coby White, I just really think he has been a disappointment throughout his career for Chicago. Last season, he seemed like he was making the adjustment to being an efficient scorer and seemed like he could give the Bulls valuable minutes and get them some buckets off the bench in a bench role, as he did have around league average efficiency last season, playing 28 minutes a night and averaging 13, 3, and 3, and really overall seemed like he established himself as a decent NBA player. But this season, He's got below league average true shooting, 53.8 true shooting, playing 20 minutes a night, averaging just 8 points, 2.5 boards, and 2 assists. And it's clear, I think he needs a change of scenery. It just seems like his spell in Chicago has ran very dry. And as like the rest of this team, he's having a really down season. And the years before that, there were also questions about him. And last season seemed like the year, year 3, where he finally put it together somewhat and became a good, solid NBA role player for Chicago and helped their pursuit of the playoffs and getting them to the 6th seed. And all of that has seemingly just gone away this season. Playing less minutes, he's not a great defender, and that bench scoring just hasn't been the same this season for the Bulls. White is just 22 though, and I do think with another team he could possibly rejuvenate his career, but as I said, I do think his spell in Chicago has run very dry, and it seems like he's been there for like 10 years already. And as for Patrick Williams, he is shooting well from 3 this year as he had in the past in his NBA career, but he is doing it on slightly higher volume. But really with Williams, there's an issue with his usage and confidence because he's not being used on offense very much for the Bulls. Williams is just 21. I still very much think he can be a good player as he was drafted mainly for his high ceiling and not his college production, as he did come off the bench for Florida State in college. He's averaging around 9 a game, shooting 43% from 3 this season, and he's a really good defender as well on the perimeter. Chicago's best perimeter defender probably besides Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball, but I don't know if you count him. And really with Williams, it's just hard for him to get involved with Vucevic, DeRozan, and LaVine all on the floor at the same time, and for him to get a lot of touches, which will stagnate his offensive development. And really, I don't know what the Bulls' plan for him is at this point, but I personally do still think he can be good. He's just 21 years of age. I think this is one of the players the Bulls should try to hang on to if they do decide to start a new rebuild and trade their guys such as DeRozan, LaVine, and Vucevic, as we said. And really looking at the state of this team, they're in a weird place as they do not have their pick this year. They don't have many very good young guys. Zach LaVine's value is lower than it has ever been, and he's on a long-term deal where he's going to be making crazy amounts of money by 2026 and 2027. And really, they've just put themselves in a tough spot. I do think they should try to trade some of their guys, and they're going to have to make changes as their current record is not going to cut it for this whole season. But overall, a very interesting story in the NBA.